it gonna do?
Better. Stronger.
Son of a bitch.
Faster.
Oh, yeah!
Hey, welcome back. Yeah, back from Ireland. We had a great trip out there. We stayed in a castle in Ireland that Mark rented. Ever since he was a little kid, he had two wishes. He wanted to live in a castle, and he wants to be shot out of a cannon. And so we've yet to shoot him out of a cannon. His goal was to, when he was wrestling, back in the day when he was wrestling, his goal was to be shot out of a cannon at WrestleMania. Like, he wanted to be shot out where they announce him and then they shoot him out of a cannon into the ring, which would have been amazing. But I mean, you could die.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it would just be like one of those magic tricks where like they shoot a dummy out of a cannon and then like a puff of smoke appears in the middle of the ring and it's like Smelly stands up.
Yeah, David Blaine would be proud.
Yeah. Like, boom, there he is. Holy shit, did you see that?
That's
you know? So we haven't shot him out of a cannon, but we did stay in a castle called the Lychee Castle, Lychee, Lisheen Castle. You can look it up online. Interestingly enough, it was a castle that was built around the 1800s. So it's not like an ancient castle. It was a castle of a wealthy family that lived in Ireland, but they had some issues with the IRA, I guess, and the house got firebombed in 1921 and was completely destroyed. And so for years, it was just ruins. And the guy that actually was renting out the Airbnb, it's an Airbnb now. The guy that was renting it out, actually, his family lived in the house that was in front of it. And as a kid, he used to go play in the ruins. So when he was growing up in like the probably 70s, he was like a little bit older than me, maybe. When he was growing up in like the 70s and 80s, they used to play in it as ruins. But then in like 1996, I think, they like restored the whole thing. And so it's like a modern house inside. It was really nice inside. But it was definitely an old school castle on the outside, which was like really, really cool to see. And then obviously we went and visited a bunch of other castles and things like, you know, we saw a lot of ones that were a lot older than that, you know, from the 1500s and things like that, which is just really cool to see a lot of culture when you go somewhere, you know?
Yeah, it was gorgeous. The pictures were absolutely incredible. I saw a comment. Someone said, be careful, those weren't made to hold over 125-pound men. I was like, I wonder if that guy's got a point.
Yeah.
I mean, how did it feel inside? Was it like real sturdy inside, or did it feel, did it show its age inside?
In the castle?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Like, I mean, this castle, it's all made out of rocks, you know?
Okay.
I mean, it's like the actual shell and outside of the castle, even though it got like burnt down, they only burnt the parts that were like house-like, you know, that were wooden.
Wow.
So obviously, like all the stone stayed and everything like that. So,
Right.
yeah, no, I mean, I think, I don't know. It seemed pretty durable of a place to me. Didn't
That's
seem like I
cool.
was going to break anything.
That's really, what a great thing
And
to do with your family.
The one thing that I was really interested in is there's cows everywhere. So everywhere you go in Ireland, you see cows. So driving along the countryside, you just see these lush green pastures and you see more cows, and then more lush green pastures and you see more cows. And it doesn't seem like they have a system of factory farming there at all that I saw. I saw all the cows being raised on grass. I didn't see any sort of like feedlot operations, but they did have this interesting system of farming that I think they're using here in the United States as well. That's actually like a lot more efficient. So instead of putting the cows out on a bunch of grass, they go out and they mow the grass down and they spread the grass around this barn. So like, imagine like just a barn being like a square, and they have these places where the cows can stick their heads out of the barn. So they put all the cows in the barn and then they spread the grass like around, and it's really high, like 4 feet high of like hay and grass. And the cows stick their heads out and eat it. But it seems like they're having a great time. Like they were all playing with it. They were like throwing it around. It seemed like they were having like a little party when we were there. So like, I don't know, anybody who thinks that a lot of this stuff is cruel to cattle, it looked like they were having a lot of fun to me. And that seems to be a new way of grazing, and I'm not exactly sure. I need to look into it. I haven't looked into why it's more efficient yet, or why it might be a better way of doing things. But it also might be just a better way of doing things when it gets real cold outside. The interesting thing about cattle, though, is they can withstand some bitter cold. When I was in Nebraska with Piedmontese, I asked them, I said, well, you must bring them in the winter because it gets like 30 below zero out here. It gets so cold out in the Great Plains. And they said, no, we just put up wind shields. So they put up these giant wind blockers, these partitions that block the wind. And the cows, like, they don't like the wind. So they stand behind those when it's really, really cold. And otherwise, they're pretty much fine, which is just wild that they can survive, in that kind of temperature. And I did a lot of research on cattle in general, because it's like I'm very interested in it. And the one thing that I found out that was really sad and devastating, and I posted about this, and a lot of people were talking about it, was they want to cull, which means basically get rid of, kill or get rid of, however they do it. They want to cull 1.3 million cattle from Ireland because of global warming, because of climate change, whatever you want to call it. And I just don't think that that's a good thing. I don't think that that's the route to go. I think that we have a big misunderstanding of climate change and like what causes it and what we're doing to cause it. I think a lot of people just look at like, well, these cows, they emit a lot of methane, and if we could reduce that, that would be great. But I think if you looked at the amount that we reduce it by getting Ireland, like, to get rid of 1.3 million cows, and the amount of methane you reduce and what that would actually do to the planet, it's really microscopic. We wouldn't even be able to really register it that much. The problem with just looking simply at methane emissions is that as long as we keep about the same amount of cattle on the planet, which it hasn't gone up at all in in great amount of time. It hasn't gone up in great numbers in a significant amount of time. But methane only stays in the air for 10 years. So the methane that the cows emitted 10 years ago, that's already gone. It doesn't stay in the air like carbon dioxide stays in the air for thousands of years. So the things that we're getting from our vehicles and from our own, man-made pollution is staying in the air for thousands of years. The things that the cows are outputting is staying in the air for about 10 years. And like I said, unless we make more cattle, that number is going to stay like relatively the same and be pretty safe. So I think that like just a lot of this stuff with climate change is like a knee-jerk reaction that doesn't need to happen. We hear a lot of people talking lately about, we have celebrities like Robert Downey Jr., and I love Robert Downey Jr. He's amazing. He came to the premiere of Bigger, Stronger, Faster.
Wow.
I actually went to college, USC, with his wife, Susan. So Susan Levine was a good friend of mine at USC, and she graduated and went on to become a producer, and she married Robert Downey Jr. So I love that guy. I think he's amazing. I've seen him speak in AA, and he's been a great inspiration to me. But now he's talking about eating bugs. I don't know if you saw that on Stephen Colbert. He came out and he was talking about like, hey, this is crickets. You can eat these crickets now, and these are going to be great for you, and they're high in protein. And if you've been seeing lately, like a lot of that stuff in the news where people literally are trying to talk us in to eating bugs to save the planet. My question is, why is it not cruel and unusual? Like they talk about, they want to build these high rises that are full of crickets and bugs, and all just live on top of each other, and we'll use that for our food. And like, why is that like not factory farming? And how many millions and millions of crickets do you have to eat to equal, a cow? That of a cow. Like when you slaughter a cow, you have meat for a lot of people for a lot of days. And when you slaughter a cricket, you have 1/100th of a meal, So I don't know. It's like, what are we trading off? What are we getting out of eating crickets? What new is going to happen? First of all, everybody thinks it's gross. right?
Yeah.
Second of all, who knows what disease issues we run into with that? Third of all, like, I don't know, making people eat bugs unless people want to eat them. If they taste great, like I could see them actually like tasting good, and people are like, this is pretty good. I'll eat this. But until we really prefer it, trying to, I think, force people into that is not the right way to go. I think that the more we push on people to stop eating meat because it's so-called like unhealthy, the more backlash we're going to get, because we realize like, oh, that's not what's unhealthy. It's not the actual meat itself that's unhealthy. It's all these other stuff that we're making. I say this all the time, is like, you can't really make junk food out of an animal without using plants. So there's like nothing on a cow that you could actually eat that's going to fatten you up to kill you until you start adding in plant foods along with it, until you start adding in the sugars, until you start adding in the oils, right? Like until we start adding in all these things that we process. Now we do also process and make a lot of things out of animals that are bad in combination with the plants, but without the combination of the plants, there's really nothing inherently bad in an animal that you can eat. And so when we say to like lean towards these animal sources, the other thing that I have to say is that like in just one burger patty alone, you're going to get way more nutrients out of that burger patty than you ever would out of a salad or a serving of athletic greens. We have all these products on the market. Like every major podcast is posting like, hey, get your athletic greens now. And it's your insurance policy, right? Like what a pretty little phrase. It's a daily insurance policy. Well, you know what else is a daily insurance policy? Is a burger patty from anywhere, from any factory farm, from the worst factory farm that you can find. A piece of animal flesh, red meat from a ruminant animal is going to have more nutrients in it than any of these salads or any of these concoctions that are made out of plants. And it's not to say that eating plants are bad. I really lean into eating a lot of fruit. I like it. It tastes good. It's the part of the plant that the plant wants you to eat. The trees bear fruit, we say, right? They give us the fruit. They want us to spread to spread the seed. But I don't think that getting rid of animals is the way to get there.
Do you put much credibility in the fact that cows, because cows have so many stomachs, they're able to filter out the bad parts?
So that's the interesting thing we talk about, right? Like a cow is what they call a ruminant animal. And when you're looking at like fish, right? And we have like factory fed fish, factory farmed fish that are farm fed, farm raised. We have factory farmed chickens that are, farm raised and fed, and also pigs. And those animals are monogastric, which just means one simple thing. They have one stomach. They have one pipe in, one pipe out kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And with the cow, it goes in, goes through one pipe, goes to another pipe, goes to another pipe, goes to another pipe, and then it comes out, the backside. And with all those different stomachs and all the different things going on within those stomachs, they can literally take broken Skittles and M&Ms, which some farmers actually, there's a lot of crap that sometimes ends up in factory farm feed. But as long as the agronomists, and an agronomist is a fancy word for somebody who designs feed for animals, as long as the agronomist or whoever is in charge of the feed for the animal makes sure that the feed has a certain amount of grass in it, which is probably like around 40%, I believe. It might be higher than that. I could be off on that. But there's a certain percentage of grass that a cow needs. And anything over that, they can pretty much process almost anything that is food-like in nature into protein for us. And they upcycle that. So I don't know. Is that necessarily a bad thing? I don't necessarily want, when I first heard it, my knee-jerk reaction is, oh no, like there might be some Skittles in my, factory farmed meat.
Or, God forbid, corn.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it doesn't come back out. It's interesting though, because it seems like the cow filters all that out.
Right.
Whereas like the fish doesn't. So when you hear people like Joe Rogan often talks about this, and we love Joe Rogan. He's awesome. But I think, and I could be wrong too, but I think he's misinformed on this because he talks a lot about the animals being sick. And I just disagree. I don't think the animals are sick. Because he's like, you don't want to eat like a sick animal that's been being fed, like, but none of these so-called factory farmed animals are ever sick. Those are the commodity for the farmer.
Right.
Those are very expensive. For each cow, it's going to be a minimum of $10,000 riding on that cow. So none of the farmers want to see their cattle to be sick. So I actually don't think they're sick. But if they are pigs or chickens, they could definitely be sick.
Well, that probably like convolutes it on animal to animal, right?
Yeah.
And then also, you got to imagine we're not that far from the industrial age, but we've gotten pretty far where technology, maybe this is sort of like a outdated concept. Maybe in the 40s and the 30s, there were a lot of sick cattle in those, quote unquote factory farming. But, just like with everything else, we've
improved it.
We've improved it. I mean, I don't know.
We seem to be the most, the other thing is that because factory farming has gotten such a bad rap and all these like undercover films done on like, they went into the farm and they saw this and that. First of all, what most people need to know is that when you watch these vegan movies, they never, ever specify where it is because usually it's in like Australia. Mm-hmm. Usually it's in somewhere far away that are doing all these things to these animals. Like there's a movie called Dominion and they show all this crazy stuff going on to animals, but then you realize like, oh, this is in other countries. This isn't happening here. And not to say that it's not a problem just because it's not happening here, but since we are the world leader in how we produce animals, then I would think that we would be ahead of the game as far as, being humane to the animals and also raising healthy animals as well. So when I see it and it's going on in other countries, I'm like, doesn't really concern me as much because I know that where I'm getting my meat from, that's not happening, And then again, like, do you know where your meat comes from? A lot of people don't. Mm-mm. And a lot of the cheaper meats come from all over the place. They come from different countries. The stuff from Butcher Box does come from Australia and New Zealand and places like that. So who knows how those animals are being treated over there? I just know that like where I get my beef from is mainly from Nebraska and California, and that's it.
I think somewhere the narrative turned into, especially like these pig farms, there's these giant sewer pits that look like ponds of just sewer that you're not even allowed to look at, you're not even allowed to talk to, or they've outlawed it somehow. Is that an urban legend? Is that actual fact?
So there are these crazy lagoons of poop from pigs. Yeah. You're right. And they're very toxic to like waterways and stuff. They haven't quite figured out how to make that work, I guess, in a way that's productive. But also on the flip side, if you go to Piedmontese and you go to their farm, their so-called factory farm, where their feeding pens are for their where they finish the cows, you go out there and they have a giant lagoon of manure that's used to fertilize all the crops and the grass that all the cows eat on the 8,800 acres of land. And every ounce of poop is used, so you don't have that problem. So some people have figured this stuff out, like when you look at Piedmontese, like they seem to have it figured out pretty well. And they don't run into those problems. So I think a lot of these problems with the so-called factory farms, I think a lot of the problems lie more in the chicken and pig issues. And, for myself, I don't really eat a lot of chicken and a lot of pork. And if I do, I try to get, the better stuff. Mm-hmm. The unfortunate thing, I wouldn't even say it's unfortunate, I don't think. But I guess the catch-22 is that just because something is raised not the best, in a way that you might agree with, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be unhealthy, right? So, like, just because maybe a family of 4 can't afford to buy chicken raised on, like, a really good farm that doesn't have these issues, so they just buy the cheapest chicken from Purdue or whatever, right? And that's not raised in the best conditions. Well, is that family going to be unhealthy? No, they're going to have the same health outcomes most likely as a person eating the good chicken for the most part. There are like little differences here and there. So I just ask everybody to like be as educated as possible on your own and just do your best.
You know, Chris, have you ever heard of that expression, stepping over dollars to pick up pennies?
Yeah.
When I think about it's sort of been exposed now that all these fake burgers, how the ingredients list, the money grab that tried to go on behind the scenes, the actual, like when you read how dirty and nasty they kind of seem like. I mean, maybe not compared to fruity, cereal, but compared to meat, right? I can't even imagine what they would put in crickets to try to make crickets not disgusting.
Oh yeah, to make it taste good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like what are they going to do with like crickets? Are they going to mix it with like
Cheeto crickets, man.
white flour and sugar to make it taste good? Like what are they going to if they're going to make cricket burgers, what's the cricket burger going to be? Yeah. Right? Like it's not going to be hey, we just took a bunch of crickets and we smashed them all together and we air fried them and it tastes amazing.
Yeah. Nacho flavored crickets. Yes.
Yeah, and it's like crickets, I believe that insects have very little fat on them. So I would imagine that.
A lot of soy oil, right?
Well, I don't know. Like, I would imagine crickets would be not very fattening.
They would have to bind it with some oil, right?
Yeah.
With
so,
everything.
Yeah, so then they put some canola oil on crickets. Yeah. How do you like your canola oil on crickets?
Right. Oh.
And you're right. I think that that's the other thing that we need to look at. Like, what is it going to be? Or could you potentially grind a bunch of crickets into some ground beef and it actually tastes good. And it's actually a way to up the protein, keep the fat level. You're not having it. Russell's not having the cricket burger.
It's like most
mashup.
things. It's most things in life. I'm not against the option to eat crickets. I'm just against other people trying to take the option to take healthy meats away as well.
I'm all for the option to eat crickets. Like I think if a bunch of cricket products came out on the market tomorrow and they looked legit, I would probably try them. Because
Code Boar for your crickets.
Well, what if you liked them better?
Right.
What if you're like, these crickets are like Robert Downey Jr. was right, man. I'm missing the boat.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there, watching our next Robert Downey Jr. movie just with
cricket popcorn?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, bucket of crickets.
Yeah.
Buttered crickets.
But can't I still have a steak, every Friday night? I mean, that's where the problem is this ideology. And this is what this is. This is just turning into an ideology.
Russell, on Friday nights, you can eat the queen cricket.
Awesome.
It's like this big.
Yeah. Oh God.
It's like the size of a burger patty.
Oh, it's my cheat night.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And you can even smush it yourself.
Oh, sounds delicious.
Yeah. The best way to make cricket is you gotta get your shoe out first. You gotta give it a good whack.
You never saw Snowpiercer? Did you ever see your Snowpiercer?
Yes.
I mean, you know what I'm talking about.
Did they eat crickets in that?
Was it cockroaches or crickets?
Oh, maybe.
They had those bars.
Oh yeah.
They fed them bars every day, right?
I think they got those on Shark Tank.
And it was exposed
from Mark Cuban.
Yes, it was exposed that the bars were made of crickets or cockroaches. I don't remember which one. And what a great movie, by the way. That's one of my favorite unknown movies.
Do some nice bird. That's right, man. There's your food. There's your protein block.
Every time I think of the future, I can't help but think of Idiocracy.
Oh yeah,
which I need to watch again.
Yeah,
but I think we're going more that way with everything.
Well, some could say that we could be going towards the Snowpiercer way too.
Yeah, both.
Did you see those links I sent you?
Oh, so that was on. You were sending me links about the World Economic Forum, right?
Yes.
So I think that's the reason. I haven't dove into that yet, which I should. I think that's the whole reason why all this stuff is going on with the climate change, correct?
From what I know, those are some, the public face of some really big behind-the-scene decision makers. And I've probably been listening to Sam Tripoli way too much.
I have way too much conspiracy theories on my brain, too.
Me too.
I don't know why. Like, I honestly, I don't know why. I don't know what got into Robert Downey Jr.'s brain to say, go on this show and talk about eating crickets. I don't know if it's authentic. I don't know if somebody's like pushing him to do it, because everybody brings up a conspiracy right away, like, oh, who told Robert Downey Jr. to do that?
And
it's
did
like,
you see how thin he is now?
yeah, but like no one ever told me to go on Joe Rogan and talk about the carnivore diet. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like people just get into things.
Right, you're not backed. You've never been backed.
Yeah, I've never been backed by anything. I just go on and talk about what I'm into at the time. And oddly enough, he lives in Hollywood, and there's weird people there, and they get into fads and things, and maybe that's the thing right now. I don't know. Or maybe he's an investor in it. Mm-hmm. You know, like I would imagine, like maybe he got bamboozled into being some sort of investor, and he's got money in it. Mm-hmm. But he's also saying, like, I got money in this because I really believe in it. Like, I really believe in Kratom, right? Mm-hmm. So I'd put money. If somebody said, hey, let's push this right now, I'd say, yeah, I got money in it. I'm excited about it. Let's go. Could be just something that he's excited about and pushing. But it's all very suspicious, you know?
It's super sus.
And it's all suspicious of, like, you know, Bill Gates owns all this farmland, and he's like, well, I just like farmland. It's a good investment to have in your portfolio. And, you know, he's the same guy that when I asked him, why were you on Epstein's island? His response was, well, he's dead now, so we shouldn't talk badly about him.
I'm going to give you some a dumb guy analogy here. Have you ever played chess with someone that actually knows what they're doing, and you see them just start launching pieces, and you're like, this makes no sense to me what you're doing. I don't see. And then all of a sudden you go, oh, you've got me covered.
Checkmate.
You checkmated me right under my nose, and I had no idea.
Yeah, I watched you moving all these pieces around. I had no idea what you were doing, and then you just killed me.
Yeah.
That's what Bill Gates is doing?
Man, I'm getting old, aren't I? I'm starting to buy into all this stuff. Not the thing that we shall not talk about or we get deplatformed. After what we went through the last 3 years, do you have any confidence in any like big organization anymore?
No, I have zero confidence. Mark and I were talking about this morning. I have zero confidence in science at all. I think that science is 100% backed by, when you start looking into more and more science about different things, it's all backed by like big pharma. Right. Like it all boils down to like, hey, it's all, in the end, it's backed by big pharma. It's backed by big business. Mm-hmm. The milk studies are backed by the milk companies. Mm-hmm. The meat studies are backed by the meat companies. The cricket eating things are backed by the cricket company. You know, it's like.
See, I'm into the science that Mrs. Franks taught me in the 7th grade. How many toothpicks do you need to build a bridge that can handle this? I'm not against science. I'm against the industry of science, because it seems like the industry of science needs a lot of money to be fully functional, and they will go like anywhere. People go to where the money is, and it seems like it's gotten corrupt. And
I saw a great, you know, example the other day. It's like Whitney Cummings was on with Tim Dillon.
Yeah.
And she said, you know, these studies, they all, it's like, she's like, I did like 5, you know, I used to do clinical trials all the time when I was broke.
Yeah.
And she's like, and then you realize all these clinical trials are a bunch of broke people like me on like 5 different things and 5 different clinical trials at the same time because I have no money, and that these weird medicines and stuff only work on these weird people that are in these weird studies. And you're like, maybe she's right.
Yeah.
Maybe she's got something there.
Yeah.
You know, like when you start looking into clinical trials and who does them, when you look into, there's a Dateline episode. I think they probably even pulled it from the air and probably will never air it again, because I remember like Big Pharma got up in arms about it, but they did a whole expose on how they do clinical trials and how all these poor people in India are on like, you know, 7, 8 trials at a time.
Right. That was also in the, you know, the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And well, in somewhere along the way, I heard that if you wanted to get the Big Pharma can fast track their tests by using these third-party vendors that are certified by the FDA, but basically funded by Big Pharma. So they can cut through the red tape by using their basically privatized inspectors that they're the ones funding it. It's super sus.
Nothing that you read in a medical journal is not backed by pharma. I mean, like all the articles, you know, it's like the other thing is like when we watch the news, we expect the news to give us the news. But do you know about native ads?
No.
So like native ads happen all the time. Like all these big companies like Apple, you know who's really suspect of it is Taco Bell.
Oh, you're talking about like ad placement in movies like they did in Wayne's World?
Ad placement in the news.
In the news, though.
In the news, they'll be like, Taco Bell's bringing back their new Mexican pizza. But it's a news. It's on the news, like, right? Like, it's coming at you as news, as
From
like
a trusted source.
We're giving you, like, hey, fans are excited about the new Taco Bell. No, they're not. You got paid to put that in the news, and it's appearing as news, but it's not news. It's called a native ad, right? And they're everywhere. And when you start realizing these things and you start opening your eyes, I posted for the first time today for people that follow me to go follow Adam Curry and John C. Dvorak's podcast, No Agenda, because I think it's great.
On what? On all the socials, on Twitter, on how do you get to them?
Well, No Agenda's on the Apple Podcast app. It's the Podfather. It's your Adam Curry, the original podcaster.
Yes.
And he deconstructs the media. But once you start listening to somebody that deconstructs the media and starts picking apart, oh, that's a native ad. Oh, that's, that's coming from this angle. The other thing that I don't even know how I just learned this today. But like everybody's owned by Disney, basically. Mm-hmm. Like Disney owns Fox, right? Mm-hmm. And they own CNN. Do they own CNN?
And maybe Sony.
I think they own both, though. Like, when you realize that, you're like, well, this is really crazy.
Yeah.
This is really getting crazy. And it's all owned by, like, Disney, right? Who has, like, this favorable image in our head all the time. But I think they're doing the most to disrupt our kids and disrupt, everything.
From topic to topic, that water goes very deep.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of crazy stuff in the
a lot of agendas that move.
A lot of agendas, put it that way. Yeah. There's a lot of agendas moving through Disney, through schools, through like everybody thinks it's fluff and it's okay because it's like Disney backed.
Right.
But then when you start looking into it, well, Disney's also behind gambling. Yeah. Like it's very surprising to me that like nobody's really called this out, but like Disney is the parent company of ESPN, who now blatantly, for years it's been horrible to be a gambler. You've been a piece of shit if you were a gambler.
Degenerate.
Now, sign up for DraftKings. We'll give you the first $15 free. We'll get you in. We'll get you hooked. Right? They needed new ways to hook people. So Disney has made gambling completely legal and acceptable.
Just real sidebar with this, I was watching Your Mom's House recently, and Nadav is he likes to play the cards and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he just referenced something I've heard about a couple of years ago. People talk about these offshore gambling sites that aren't legal in the United States, and it's really easy for them to take your money. But once you ask for your money back, they go, okay, well, we need to verify your address and identity. Oh, you're in the United States. Sorry, we can't ship to the United States. And you got to figure out whatever crazy loophole to do international, three-card Monte to get your money back. But I think most people just give up and just, you lost $5,000 this month. This month you won $3,000. Oh, can I have my $3,000? Sorry, you live in Ohio. We can't send you your money.
It's one thing I don't see myself ever signing up for is any of that DraftKings, like online gambling. I don't know who's doing that, but I'm sure that's hurting a lot of people. No. I'm sure it's taking a lot of people's money.
Right.
I mean, they're not in it for philanthropy.
No.
They're not in it to give away money. They're in it to take your money. Mm-hmm. And so I just see that as like really crazy and disingenuous. Like you own Marvel, and you're going to get all these kids into like the fact that gambling's okay and it's cool.
Mm-hmm. They've built it into video games now.
That's what I'm saying.
It's built into
gambling's
video games
everywhere.
Where you're buying these quote unquote tokens.
But you remember gambling used to be bad, right?
Right.
It used to be looked down upon.
And I'm going to tell you
like
what I think about that. I'm going to tell you what I think about that. What I think about most vices. I think 9 out of 10 people can handle vices. Maybe even 99 out of 100. And we shouldn't necessarily
shut them down.
But there needs to be some safety nets, some regulations to not take advantage of those people. I mean, personal responsibility.
But I was completely fine before online gambling was available. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like it's offering us anything new or good.
No.
Right? Like, there's no I feel like they're making it really easy for a lot of people to lose a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, going back to the to our discussion on the
on cows.
Yeah.
And crickets.
Cows and crickets. my overall sentiment and statement on that is I just think it's really sad that we look at these cows that have been here for hundreds of years, right? And they've been doing nothing wrong. And we're pushing people to get we want people, we're trying to get rid of cows in exchange for like Teslas, because we think that like a Tesla is more efficient than a cow. And when you really look into it, what are all the stuff that we're mining to get the equipment for a Tesla. But one of the things, to get the batteries for the Tesla, all these things. But one of the things that's like really interesting is like right here in Sacramento, there's a Tesla. This is just a statement to how ridiculous all of it is, how it's all a big charade and it's all garbage. In Sacramento, there's a Target here, and they have it's downtown, and they have a supercharger, Tesla supercharger. You drive around the back of the Target, and there's a giant diesel generator that does what?
Runs that charging station.
Powers the Tesla charging station.
Yeah.
With a lot of diesel gas.
Yeah.
Which just shows that like this whole thing is stupid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's this big merry-go-round that we're on, and so how are these people more efficient than these people? They're not. They just think they are, and they hold their nose up at everybody. And I shouldn't say that because my brother has a Tesla, and walk around saying I'm better than you because I have an electric car. But your electric car is using the same gas that my car is using. So to me, all this stuff is it's a big game, and I don't think that we as consumers should be playing into it. So I'm just trying to get the word out there and warn people that I don't think cows are the problem. I don't think they're the issue. And I think that we should be looking at other things before we look at getting rid of our number one source of food in the world.